I'm Dennis Anderson along with Pamela Fish, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
A new economic study released this week is the most comprehensive ever done on the financial impact of the arts in Minnesota. We'll focus on the Arrowhead numbers in that report.
Well, winter isn't ready to give up its hold on the region, so why fight it? We'll tell you about a new effort to celebrate winter in Duluth.
And we'll have the week's business headlines and a news file story from 25 years ago.
So stay right where you are. Almanac North is next. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. Our show was recorded on Wednesday to give our crew time to prepare for the March membership drive on PBS. And Pamela Fish is here this week filling in for Julie. Welcome, Pam.
Glad to be here.
All right, let's introduce our guests.
All right, let's do it. Thanks, Denny. The nonprofit arts and cultural community is alive and well in the Arrowhead region. That, according to a major study released this week called the Creative Minnesota Report. It's the first of what will become an ongoing series of reports measuring the extent and economic impact of the arts. Joining us to talk about that report is Sheila Smith, Executive Director of Minnesota Citizens for the Arts. Ken Bloom is the Director of the Tweed Museum of Art at UMD. And Rebecca Petersen is the Executive Director of the Duluth Superior Symphony Orchestra. Thanks so much to all of you for being here today. Sheila, let's just start with why this report was done in the first place.
Well, a consortium of the state's most prominent art-supporting foundations and organizations got together to look at a problem of a void of data about the nonprofit arts and culture in Minnesota. And so working together, they implemented a new project called the Cultural Data Project, which was to gather data. And this report, the Creative Minnesota Report, is the first product of their collaborative efforts. And it will be used for evaluation, education, advocacy at the Capitol, et cetera.
Okay.
Sheila, how successful are you in lobbying the Minnesota legislature and Congress for funding?
Well, pretty successful in Minnesota. We worked to include the arts and culture in the Legacy Amendment, which passed in 2008 by 56% of the vote. High percentage of Minnesota public supported that. And so these days we work to protect the Legacy Amendment to make sure that the legislature directs those resources to where they're supposed to go.
And Ken, let me ask you, and I'll ask you as well, Rebecca, how much you depend on this type of information that's being gathered in a report like this?
Well, for the Tweed, our relationship with the community is primarily cultural, aesthetic. We're a free museum, so the money that we need to operate comes to us through foundations, public donations. And we do receive support from the State Arts Board. And that money is directly related to the success of the work of Minnesota Citizens for the Arts.
Okay, and Rebecca, you?
Well, I'm really excited about this. We've been participating in the Cultural Data Project for a couple of years now. A lot of funders in the state of Minnesota are using this to collect data, as Sheila said, and it's a really great resource for us because we can go print reports, we can see how we're doing compared to other organizations. And this report is really exciting because we'll all be able to use this data and challenge ourselves to do this well and better in the future.
Ken, the Tweed Museum has been around for a long time here in Duluth. Tell our viewers, what does it do for this community?
Well, I tell people the famous elevator speech. In our basement are the cultural treasures, the artistic treasures of this campus and this community. Our job is to make them known and to make them available. Beside that, we have exhibitions, we publish, we take care of students, we handle scholars from around the world. We're well known around the country because of the art collections we have.
Sheila, let's get to some of the findings. They were very interesting for the Arrowhead region of Minnesota, I think, in terms of the economic impact there is here.
Yeah, there were 107 organizations studied in the Arrowhead region. That includes the Arrowhead, Duluth, and the Range. And that includes everything from the Grand Marais Art Colony, the Mesabi Symphony Orchestra, Duluth Art Institute, the Hibbing Historical Society, the Range Artist Association, the Tweed. Quite a range of different types of art, but everything located in the region. And then also the historical organizations and some humanities organizations. And what was interesting is that the Arrowhead region has the second largest arts economy beyond the 7-county metro area. So something really great is going on in the Arrowhead region compared to the rest of the state. The state's divided into 11 regions, by the way. So of the 11, well, one of them is in the metro, so the Arrowhead is just second, which is great.
Sheila, I checked your website this morning, and I noticed you have a survey out to a number of lawmakers from this region. And quite a few DFL lawmakers haven't responded to your questionnaire. Does that bother you?
Well, you know, legislators have different policies about questionnaires. Some folks just have a policy not to answer questionnaires, and so we don't take a non-response necessarily as non-support. And if you go down to the Capitol and talk to those particular legislators, very often you'll find that they understand the impact of the arts in their local communities and they support the funding.
That was my next question. You don't think that means they're not supporting
No,
it?
not at all.
Okay.
No.
Rebecca, when you consider the Duluth Superior Symphony Orchestra and some of the results of this report, I don't know if you've seen all of them yet, but they talk about $40 million economic impact in the region from the arts and the equivalent of 1,063 full-time jobs. Do those kind of numbers surprise you at all?
Not really. They might surprise other people, but for instance, I don't know if people recognize that for the Duluth Superior Symphony Orchestra, we employ 80 to 100 musicians on an annual basis. So when you start adding up those kinds of numbers, and I think it's really interesting because many people don't realize that artists and musicians get paid for the work that they do. We certainly recognize that we all should pay them more, but they add to that economic engine, and they also bring their friends and their relatives out to activities and a surging economy because of that.
Yeah. Sheila, you mentioned that the Legacy Fund passed by 56% a few years ago.
Right.
Pretty good percentage. Does it have to be renewed every once in a while? Does it have to go back to the voters, and how soon?
It's 25 years, so it passed in 2008, so I don't know if you can't do the math that quickly. But
Okay,
yeah.
you've got a ways to go.
19 more years.
Okay.
Okay. So some of these numbers, though, will be used for lobbying. What else are the numbers being used for?
The participating foundations, such as the McKnight Foundation, the Bush Foundation, Target, MARDAG, Jerome Foundation, State Arts Board and Regional Arts Councils, they needed hard data to use for planning, and also to look back. The last time an economic impact study was done in Minnesota was 2006. It was called the Arts Driving Force in Minnesota's Economy. And we wanted to see what did the arts economy look like now compared to before the Legacy Amendment was implemented. And so on a statewide basis, we saw that the growth was over $350 million in economic impact from the nonprofit arts and culture. So that was very encouraging, particularly since in those intervening years, we had the Great Recession. And nationwide, the nonprofit arts and culture sector, like everything else, took a big hit during that period. So I think it was really fortunate in Minnesota that the Legacy Amendment had been implemented and helped organizations get through that period. And now we're looking at growth. Some of the growth, I have to say, was due to a change in methodology from 2006. We captured a lot more small, very small organizations that we didn't get to in 2006. But that's how I take it, that the Legacy Amendment has really been helping the nonprofit arts and culture organizations make it through and now step forward and contribute more to the economy.
Ken, does the Tweed Museum do other fundraising? And if so, what do you do?
Fundraising is a little complicated with us. Our primary fundraising activities are...
Through the university?
Actually not. The university, of course, pays salaries and supports the museum to about $6,000 a year, which is less than a tenth of what it costs to run the place. It was originally set up as a partnership between the university and the community. It was a very imaginative way of going about business. So the university is responsible for the housing, the collection, and staffing. But programming is through the university, is through the museum and its communities. So we apply to grants and foundations for our support for that programming.
And you'll use these numbers and this report, and will it be helpful?
We've been extraordinarily fortunate over the years. We have a very solid support base. We have a lot of people in the community who really enjoy the Tweed. So we haven't been in a position to have to argue our case too often, other than the fact to say, well, the Tweed could use your support. Remember, it's a community venture. But indeed, it's very important for people to know that when we have visitors that come to the community from out of town, that we're supporting other arts and cultural organizations, but as well as the economic base of our community. And during the summers in particular, we have a tremendous amount of international and national visitors.
And Rebecca, tell me how this report will impact the Symphony.
Well, we'll certainly be looking at these numbers and sharing them with our board and with the community and with the funders that we visit with. A lot of them already have received these numbers. I think it's just really important to recognize the kind of impact that we have outside of the concert hall, outside of the museum, how Duluth, in my estimation, is really becoming a mecca for the arts, that people are traveling here to spend the weekend, going to the Tweed, going to movies, coming to the Symphony, that it's not just one thing that brings them here. They come here for the great outdoors and they stay for the art. So it's an exciting time.
You bring up a good point. Is the Twin Ports becoming a real arts community?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and it's not just the Twin Ports, though, but the whole
the region?
The Arrowhead region. I mean, if you look up at, for example, in Grand Marais with the North House Folk School, the Grand Marais Arts Colony, they're drawing a lot of people to take classes in a variety of art forms amidst the beautiful scenery. But it's a big part of the economy up and down the lakeshore and up and down the range, too.
How do we sustain that? Are we able to sustain a thriving arts community, for instance, without as much government funding?
Well, this is what I was going to get to about how our audience works and what we've discovered. Over the course of at least the 10 years that I've been here, we are retaining more young artists. They are starting more organizations. There are more cooperatives. The market is improving for arts and culture, crafts. We've seen a tremendous growth over the course of 10 years. It seems quite sustainable. It's still growing.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy here.
Where do you see us in 10 years?
In 10 years? I think the Arrowhead region will be known even more as an arts mecca, because you're growing in number of organizations, you're growing in economic impact, $9 million in growth in economic impact since 2006. So it's very steady. You guys are doing a good job focusing on the right things.
We'll have to end on that positive note. We're running out of time, but thank you so much for being here. Lots of good insight into this. We appreciate it.
Great story. Thank you.
Thanks much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
When Cloquet firefighters arrived on the scene last night, they found Jim Hungisco's farm implement business completely engulfed in flames. Its rural location meant there were no fire hydrants in the area, so to keep the water flowing, 7 additional fire departments were called in on mutual aid. Other conditions made the blaze difficult to fight.
Well, we had an LP gas tank, a 100-pound cylinder that had already vented, so we had to cool that immediately. We had oxygen acetylene on the inside of the building, paints and some solvents, greases. There was a heavy fire load.
This morning, firefighters and the state fire marshal sifted through the ashes, looking for the cause of the fire. That investigation is still underway. Although damage estimates aren't in yet, the building is said to be a total loss.
From the looks of it, I don't see how it could have gotten any worse.
Firefighters hope to have some idea what caused the fire later this week. John Schottel, KDLH News.
Well, it's about this time of winter when many of us are ready to put away the skis and snowshoes and look forward to spring. But here in the Northland, we know that winter is far from over, so the folks at Destination Duluth thought, why fight it? They are encouraging residents to embrace winter and all it has to offer, and they have created a late winter list of activities and a photo contest to encourage folks to celebrate winter. And here with more is Tom Livingston, co-creator of Destination Duluth, and Christina Bourne and her family moved back to Duluth after 20 years away, and she now writes a blog called Outside in Duluth. Thank you both for being here. Tom, what is Celebrate Winter all about?
Well, it starts with Destination Duluth. We launched that. It's a largely virtual organization, social media. We have a Facebook site we launched in the late May of 2013. It's one of the fastest growing organization Facebook sites in the country. We're at over 60,000 followers now. So it really came from that. And the mayor has been a huge supporter. And one of the challenges we have in Duluth, because Destination Duluth is about talking about Duluth being a destination for life. It's not tourism, it's about getting people to consider moving here and becoming part of this vibrant place we call Duluth.
And it's about getting outside in the winter to do something.
Well, that is one of the big challenges, because many people think we are in an unlivable climate here. And we're trying, and we're challenging.
Where did they get that idea?
Right, and we're out to change that story, because a lot of people like Christine and her family and husband Tim moved back because of the 4 seasons of recreation. So that's where we're at.
So, Christine, tell us about why you moved back and, you know, what your blog is all about.
Yeah. Well, Tim and I met at UMD about 20 years ago, and we fell in love with the community and the place. But as most college students, life happened. It took us down a different path, and we dreamed of returning. We actually always thought we'd return during retirement. We thought we would retire here. But life offered us an opportunity a few years ago to really think about, how do we want to live our life? We had 2 young kids, and we had had some tragedies in our family, some losses that made us really think about, where do we want to live and where do we want to raise our kids? And we said Duluth. That's where our hearts were. So we literally quit jobs, sold a house, and took the leap and moved here.
How long have you been back in Duluth, Christina?
We moved back in 2012.
Okay, so you did live through last winter.
We lived through, we sure did, yep. We lived through the snowiest winters that we've had.
How much of your decision to come back was based on outdoor activities?
Nearly all of it.
Really?
It was based on the fact that Duluth is such a unique geography, and there are so many opportunities to get out that are accessible, that are inexpensive. There's really no excuses here to not get out with your family. And we wanted our kids to have that outdoor DNA, that's just who they are. They spend time outside and they enjoy the beauty of where they live.
Tom, are you finding more and more people here starting to embrace winter?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, not only that, there's a migration of people like Christina and her family to Duluth because of what we have, and it's on a weekly basis. I'm running into younger people than myself, bringing young families here, and it's happening. So yeah, absolutely. It's the whole character of our community is I think changing dramatically.
And there are more and more activities going on, as shown by this winter festival?
Yeah, I think when you get to the Winter in Duluth Facebook site, you'll see we're promoting events over a 3-week period. And we have Hartley, which is actually on a weekly, daily basis, bringing young people, school-age people, to the outside. We have Chester Bowl is having their winter frolic this Saturday. You have Cogs, the bike people, building trails, and they're having a mountain bike race at Spirit Mountain.
Hot chocolate in the yurt. What is that?
Well, hot chocolate. Our friend Tom O'Rourke, and we reached out to all the organizations that are supporting us, and he just came up with, well, people are coming here. Well, it's a beautiful yurt, actually built by Scott Graydon from the New Scenic, and it's going to be, you go there from 3 to 5 on March 4th, and you can have hot chocolate in the yurt at Hartley.
We're going to take a quick look at a video that shows some of what's going on with Winter in Duluth. If you go to the Winter in Duluth Facebook, you'll see some of this and some of the activities, so we're going to take a look at that.
Find some examples of things that are living and non-living. So I want everybody. Well, all of my jobs basically revolve around the outdoors. For me, not only growing up here, but just some of the experience I've had being outside, especially with young people, whether they're kindergartners like today, or middle schoolers or high schoolers. Getting them these outdoor experiences makes it even more special, I think. And do you remember what color the last two was? You know, it's having that time to get kids outside and focus learning on what they can from the outdoors as a class.
See how its teeth just took.
You know, whether it's looking at animal tracks or looking for beaver signs or studying the snow and taking different temperatures of it. There's so much that you can learn, and it's right there at your fingertips. I mean, celebrate, you know, is the notion of enjoying what winter has to offer. If we go up the trail about 500 or 600 yards, but I think winter in some ways is like quintessential what it is to be in Minnesota. I mean, our motto is get outside, learn, enjoy. That's what life is about for us.
You know, I see these bicycles in this piece, and I have seen more and more bicycles being used in Duluth year-round. This is a hilly city, yet we're using bicycles in January and February.
Absolutely, especially the fat bike. That's a game changer. The 4 to 5 inch tire. That I own one myself, and it's incredible. You feel like you're 12 years old again. You can go anywhere. It's quite special.
And education is a big part of the promotion as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Tell us about some of the other educational activities that go along with this. And I know, Christina, you as well, that's probably part of your blog. I know your children are involved. So the educational aspect, how important is that?
Well, getting outside in and of itself, like the video said, is a place to learn. There's so much that happens when you take kids outdoors, and adults as well. There's skill building, there's confidence building, problem solving building, creativity. I mean, everything that you think of as important as skills that we want in adults can take place outside. And kids just do it, and it's fun. It's not in a classroom.
Mm-hmm. I've had a mustache for almost 50 years. Now there's something called the mustache run. Right. What in the world is that?
Well, it's year-round you'll find Duluth running and some creative people doing fun outdoor events. This is a running event from Fitkers.
You need to have a mustache?
You do. Well, and they provide one
I
for
don't
men
run,
or
I
women.
don't run well.
Okay, well, but you've got the mustache down there.
I have the mustache.
But anyway, that's on March 7th, which also happens to be kind of the grand finale of our winter celebration. We're having a bonfire at the corner of the lake.
Wow, no kidding.
And right where they had the polar plunge. And the fire department of Duluth is putting it on. They're manning a huge bonfire. It's going to be from 3 to 7, but 5 to 7 actually bonfire, and it's going to be spectacular.
So you're bringing in government entities within the community as well, and
oh, absolutely. Well, it started with the mayor, and he challenged us. Well, the photo contest is really important, because our photography, we have over 110 amazing photographers involved with Destination Duluth, the best of the professionals and amateurs. So this photo contest is bringing out how we celebrate, and we're known on Destination Duluth for our landscape photography, sea smoke in the winter, etc. Yeah. This is about people, and it's the things we're getting in, the images you'll see daily at this winter in Duluth.
Are you connecting with folks in the Twin Cities? I know they like to come up here.
Oh yes, yeah, that's part of our target market. We, again, in that 60,000, we have over 20,000 followers from the metro area, and the messages continue. They say, oh, we miss Duluth. We want to come there. If we could get the right job, we'd move there tomorrow. And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, you bring up a good point, because jobs really are the issue. I know, Christina, you say that outdoor activities were the #1 reason you came here, but you know, what about the job aspect?
Well, I can speak to that actually, because the good news is, and the city and in Apex, the area partner of economic expansion, they have something called North Force. And there's over 1,500 quality jobs, and they're working with us. We're the quality of place messaging, and they've actually got jobs. So more to come. If you go to our website, Destination Duluth, it actually links on Destination Duluth's website to make your move, and you can learn about the job opportunities in the area. So they're there.
Very good.
Yes. All right.
All right, Tom, Christina, thank you very much. I guess the message then is, in the winter, get outside and do.
And embrace it.
Embrace winter.
Thank you.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. All right, Danny.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Christina.
Let's turn now to some of the week's business stories from Business North. Iron Range DFL lawmakers are leading the charge to advance a controversial bill that's important to both the business and environmental communities. Legislators Carly Moline and David Tomasoni have sponsored legislation to prevent the state from enforcing sulfate limits to protect wild rice in Minnesota waters. They have two concerns. It's very expensive to meet the state's limit, and the Department of Natural Resources has not defined which water bodies must be regulated. Environmentalists charge the lawmakers are waging war on wild rice, threatening the livelihood of Lake Superior Chippewa.
Deteriorating conditions in the iron ore market have triggered the first cutback on the Iron Range. Magnetation announced Monday that low pellet prices will force the company to indefinitely idle its Plant 1 facility in Keewatin, which has higher operating costs than its other plants. The global price of iron ore has declined by more than 50% over the past 18 months, making it difficult for iron ore companies to earn a profit. Magnetation will shift production to newer Iron Range plants that operate at a lower cost.
The International Paralympic Nordic Skiing World Championships were held earlier this month in Cable, Wisconsin, and infused more than $2 million into the economy. According to the Cable Chamber of Commerce, the skiers and visitors filled large resort complexes and restaurants for 2 full weeks. Wisconsin Department of Tourism Secretary Stephanie Klett said it elevated the image of the entire state. The event has only come to the United States one other time, so Klett said to have it in Wisconsin was a very big deal. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Well, it's time to wrap up this week's show, so call now if you have a comment. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdsc.org. You can also visit the WDSC website for news and information about the station and updates on our broadcast special. In fact, it's the best place to go to learn about our March Pledge specials. Pam?
That's right. It's going to be a busy month here at PBS North in March.
It certainly will be. And Pam, Almanac North will be off for 2 weeks during our March membership drive. We ask you to remember that. So we'll see you right back here on Friday, March the 20th for our next show. For Pamela Fish and the crew here at WDSC, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a good night, everybody, and be kind.